I never thought I would feel this way, trapped in my own home by a sense of invisibility, by the slow erosion of intimacy and understanding that had once felt unshakable. At first, it was subtle. She had always had friends, close ones she could confide in and share laughter with, but they were scattered across different phases of her life. And I felt secure in the knowledge that our relationship was the priority. I was wrong. The first time she mentioned that she wanted to start meeting up with her divorced and single friends every week, I had smiled and nodded, trying to hide the tiny flutter of discomfort that rose uninvited in my chest. I told myself it was harmless, that friends were a necessity for happiness, that I was being paranoid. But now, months later, I realize that the flutter has grown into a storm I can no longer ignore. She leaves every Friday evening, cheerful, dressed for nights of laughter and conversation that I am never part of. She doesn't hide her excitement, which cuts deeper than I can explain. The air in our house seems to shift the moment she steps out the door. The silence presses against me, thick and suffocating, and I find myself wandering from room to room as if searching for something I can't name. I try to immerse myself in my own hobbies, scrolling endlessly through articles or watching television, but everything feels muted. Like the colors have been drained from the world I once shared with her. I know I sound selfish, I have friends too, but there is a difference. My friendships are shared responsibilities. Her weekly outings have become rituals that I am not invited to, barriers that grow taller with every Friday night she disappears. At first, I tried to confront her gently. I would ask about her plans in casual tones, hoping to catch some detail that would make me feel included, that would remind me I mattered. She would smile, shrug, and assure me that it was just a gathering, just casual fun, nothing to worry about. And I nodded, laughing a little to cover the tightening in my chest, convincing myself it was all in my imagination. But then came the calls and texts, the laughter I could hear over the phone when she called to check in briefly. The sound of her happiness without me became a constant ache, a reminder of the widening distance between us. I started noticing the patterns. The dinners she skipped, the quiet evenings I tried to fill with conversation that fell flat, the way her eyes seemed to light up in ways they didn't when she looked at me. I began questioning everything: the nights we spent together, the conversations that once felt endless and thrilling, the warmth that now seemed like a memory from another life. And the worst part was that I loved her too much to confront her the way I wanted to, too much to risk the anger, the disappointment, the inevitable tension that would follow if I allowed my jealousy and loneliness to surface fully. One night, I stayed up later than usual, pretending to sleep in the guest room after she had gone out. The clock ticked loudly, marking every second of my solitude. I thought about calling someone, anyone, to talk, but my pride, my embarrassment, my shame, kept me silent. I thought about our wedding, our early days, the moments we had sworn would last forever. And I wondered, not for the first time, if I had been blind, naive, or simply too trusting. What had changed? Was it me? Had I failed to make her feel alive, to make her want to stay, or was it that she had changed in ways I could not see, or worse, refused to see? The following weeks only made the situation more unbearable. I would catch glimpses of her posts online, pictures of her smiling with her friends, tagged locations, captions filled with joy and humor. I forced myself to look, telling myself I needed to understand her world, to be connected, but all I felt was an empty echo in my chest, a longing so sharp it made my hands tremble. I tried to speak, to hint, to ask casually about her evenings, but she waved off my questions with laughter and reassurances. I could feel her distance growing, subtle but undeniable, like a shadow stretching across the warmth we once shared. I began questioning myself at odd moments, in the middle of the night, in the quiet pauses of my day. Was I not enough? Was I failing her somehow? My mind became a theater of endless scenarios, imagining what she might be saying, whom she might be confiding in, and the fear, the jealousy, the pain, all twisted together into a tight knot I could not untangle. I wanted to talk, to scream, to demand that I mattered, but the thought of disrupting her happiness, of shattering her comfort, held me back. I stayed silent, trapped in a prison of my own making, watching her life from the sidelines while pretending everything was normal. There were moments, fleeting and rare, when she would return home and the warmth would return for a few minutes. She would hug me, kiss me, laugh at something small, and I would feel that old love flicker to life again. And yet, as soon as the moment passed, the cold distance returned. Friday nights became milestones I dreaded. Weekends stretched endlessly in anticipation of her absence, and I realized that I had no escape, no way to reclaim the closeness I once took for granted. Sometimes, I think about leaving, about stepping away from the loneliness that has become my companion. But then I see her face, hear her laughter, remember the dreams we shared, and I am tethered, and willing to let go, even if holding on hurts more than anything else. I wonder if this is what love feels like after years of comfort, whether it is normal to feel so profoundly invisible to the person who knows you best. I wonder if she even notices, if she even sees the longing in my eyes, the ache in my chest, the way I am crumbling quietly while she flourishes in a world that seems to have no room for me. I tried to write down my feelings once, a letter I never sent, because I didn't want her to feel guilt or pressure. I poured out my fear, my jealousy, my loneliness, all the small moments of pain that added up to something almost unbearable. And when I read it back to myself, the words sounded like a stranger's, as if I were describing someone else, someone I barely knew. I cried that night, silently, hoping that no one would hear, that the walls would hold my sorrow, and I drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by my own thoughts. And now, as I sit here, the quiet stretching around me like an ocean I cannot cross, I realize that this is my life for the foreseeable future, weeks filled with absence. Evenings marked by laughter I cannot join. A love that is still present but feels just out of reach. I am not angry, not yet. I am tired, lonely, desperate to feel seen again. I am holding on because I love her, because I remember the warmth, the shared dreams, the intimacy that once made life feel effortless. And I do not know how much longer I can endure the invisible space she has created between us without losing myself completely. The days bleed into one another now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they all seem irrelevant, merely markers on a calendar I no longer care about. I go to work, I return home, I go to sleep, and yet the anticipation of Friday night lingers in every moment, like a shadow I cannot shake. Sometimes I try to distract myself, exercise, reading, cleaning, even binge watching shows, but nothing fills the hollowness that opens up when she leaves. I have begun noticing the small, almost imperceptible changes in myself, a tightening of the chest when I see a notification on my phone. A flicker of hope quickly replaced by disappointment when it isn't her. A restless energy that carries me through the day only to collapse into the quiet despair of the evening. I catch myself staring at her photos on social media more than I care to admit. I know it's unhealthy, but I can't stop. I scroll past images of her smiling with friends, laughing at inside jokes, posing with drinks, or casual outfits that I will never see in real life. I analyze the captions, the comments, the likes, hoping for some insight into her thoughts, some window into the life she is living without me, some proof that she still cares. And yet, every glance leaves me emptier than before. The screen becomes a mirror of my loneliness, reflecting back not who I am, but who I have become, the invisible, forgotten, longing. I remember the nights when it was different. The nights when we would talk for hours, sharing everything from the trivial to the profound. We would make plans together, laugh until our sides hurt, dream about the future as if it belonged only to us. And now, even the sound of her voice over the phone carries a hollow echo, a reminder of what has slipped through my fingers. I try to reach for that connection, but she is elsewhere, immersed in friendships that I cannot penetrate, and I feel powerless. Sometimes I imagine confronting her, speaking the words I have rehearsed in my mind countless times, the accusations, the pleas, the confessions of my loneliness. But each time I open my mouth, the words stick, choked back by fear and love tangled together. I love her too much to risk the anger I might provoke, the hurt I might cause, the potential fracture that could become permanent. So I stay silent, suffering quietly, and the silence becomes its own tormentor, whispering in my ears that I am not enough, that I am failing, that perhaps I am losing her. I have begun to notice subtle patterns in her behavior that deepen my unease. The way she checks her phone before leaving, the slight hesitation when she responds to me about her plans, the animated energy that seems to belong to someone else entirely. I catch glimpses of it when she returns home, a glow that lingers in her eyes, a smile that lights her face in ways it no longer does with me. I want to ask her about it, to bridge the gap, but I am paralyzed by the fear that the moment I do, she will see me differently, with annoyance or pity or frustration. So I retreat inward, curling into myself as the weeks stretch endlessly before me. I have tried to find solace in my friends, in conversations that I once would have found comforting. But even that is tainted. I feel embarrassed to share the depth of my isolation, as if admitting it makes me weak and worthy of the love I still cling to. I think about reaching out to strangers online, posting anonymously in forums, seeking advice or empathy, but the thought of exposing myself in that way is terrifying. I am alone, and yet, I feel surrounded by people. Drowning in a loneliness that is paradoxically loud, sleep has become elusive. Some nights, I lie awake for hours, listening for sounds that will signal her return. Other nights, I drift into a restless half-sleep, dreaming of conversations I never had, moments I wish I could reclaim. I wake up feeling more exhausted than when I went to bed, weighed down by a heaviness that seems to press into my bones. I tell myself it is temporary, that it will pass, but the fear grows that it may not, that this is the new reality I must endure indefinitely. And yet, despite it all, there is still love. A stubborn love that refuses to die, that clings to the hope that one day we might find our way back to each other. I remember small things, the way she used to brush her hair, the way her laughter could fill a room, the warmth of her hand in mine, and I hold onto them like lifelines. They are fragments of a life I still long to reclaim, proof that what we had was real, even if it feels increasingly distant. Sometimes I imagine her returning home one evening, exhausted from her week of outings, and finally seeing me as I am, not angry, not bitter, just painfully, achingly lonely. I imagine her sitting beside me, taking my hand, and listening as I pour out the months of silence, the hours of waiting, the pain of watching her life continue without me. I imagine that we might talk, truly talk, for the first time in months, and that in that conversation, the distance might shrink, even if just a little. I do not know if that will happen. I do not know if she will ever notice the depth of my suffering or understand the quiet despair I carry. All I know is that each week, as she steps out the door with laughter on her lips and joy in her eyes, I am reminded of the fragility of connection, the silent agony of absence, and the stubborn and yielding nature of love. And so I wait. I wait for Fridays, for weekends, for moments when she might remember me, when the glow of her other life might flicker back toward me. I wait for the day when I can speak, when I can reclaim the intimacy we once shared, when I am seen not as a shadow on the periphery, but as the person who has always been there, quietly, desperately loving her. Until then, I endure. I endure the silence, the absence, the ache. I endure the lonely nights and the fleeting moments of connection. I endure because love, even in its most painful form, is still love, and because the hope of being seen again, of being acknowledged, is a light I cannot extinguish, no matter how dark the days grow. I find myself replaying every memory we've ever shared, searching for clues about when things changed. I remember the first time we met, her laughter cutting through the hum of the cafe, the way her eyes held a mixture of curiosity and warmth that drew me in like a magnet. We had talked for hours that day, about dreams, fears, books we loved, movies that moved us, and the world outside seemed to shrink until it was just the two of us. Those memories now feel like shards of glass, beautiful, sharp, impossible to ignore, and painful to touch. I remember our first weekend getaway, the way we wandered through streets neither of us had known, laughing at our inability to navigate a foreign city, holding hands as if the world might crumble without that simple connection. I remember late-night drives, our favorite songs playing softly in the car, her head leaning against my shoulder as we talked about nothing and everything at once. Those nights felt infinite. And now, I sit in our home, the room silent, as she exists in another world that I am barred from entering, the sense of infinity replaced by a hollow emptiness. Sometimes, I try to rationalize it. Perhaps she needs this time, this space, to feel alive outside of our relationship. Perhaps I am imagining the distance, misreading signals, projecting insecurities onto her freedom. And yet, every time she leaves, the familiar ache returns, stronger, sharper. I catch myself noticing every little detail, the sway of her hair as she walks to the door, the brightness in her eyes as she smiles at friends I cannot name, the way her energy fills a room that I have vacated. Each observation pierces me with a quiet despair, a reminder that I am watching life move forward without me. I have begun to notice changes in myself too. I startle easily, my patience thins, and even simple tasks feel like mountains I am climbing alone. The loneliness has seeped into my body, a heaviness in my chest, a tightness in my throat, a tremor in my hands. I feel invisible, not just emotionally, but physically. I move through the house like a ghost, a presence she hardly notices, and when she does, it is fleeting, perfunctory, and distant. And yet, the love remains stubborn. I see her face in my dreams, hear her voice in moments of quiet, and imagine scenarios in which we bridge the growing distance. I imagine her looking at me with understanding, compassion, and desire to reconnect, and I hold onto these visions as though they are lifelines. Sometimes I imagine confessing everything, the jealousy, the loneliness, the fear that I am losing her. I imagine her response, and I hope for empathy, for tenderness, for the reminder that our bond is not so easily broken. But reality is rarely so kind. Reality is her leaving every Friday, returning with laughter that does not include me, sharing stories and moments that I will never hear firsthand. Reality is the quiet evenings, the empty dinners, the gnawing ache of absence that stretches endlessly across our home. And yet, even in this painful reality, I cling to the memory of our connection, the proof that intimacy once existed, and the hope that it can exist again. Sometimes, I walk to the window at night, looking out at the quiet streets, imagining what she is doing, who she is laughing with, and whether she thinks of me at all. I imagine conversations that never happen, apologies that are never spoken, love that is still present but unacknowledged. I wonder if she notices the way I linger in the background, the quiet desperation that colors every smile I force, every word I speak. I wonder if she realizes that I am not angry, not resentful, just lonely and desperate to feel seen. There are nights when I try to write my feelings, filling notebooks with words I will never send, pouring out the ache, the longing, the desperate hope that she might remember me, that she might see me as I am. I write about the fear of losing her completely, about the pain of watching her life continue without me, about the moments when I almost convince myself that she has already left me emotionally. And when I read back what I have written, the words feel like echoes of someone else's pain, someone who is both me and not me, someone trapped between love and despair. I have begun to notice my own patterns of avoidance. I avoid the living room when I know she is about to call. I avoid her eyes when she returns. I avoid conversation that might reveal too much. I find solace in small things, a quiet cup of tea, a book that can momentarily transport me away from my reality, a song that reminds me of happier times, but each solace is fleeting. Each brief reprieve only serves to highlight the emptiness I feel when it is gone. And yet, through it all, I endure. I endure the silence, the absence, the gnawing ache of longing. I endure because love, even when it hurts, is still love, and because the hope of reconnection, of being truly seen again, is a light I cannot extinguish. I endure because I remember the first time I saw her, the first time I held her hand, the first time I laughed until my stomach ached at something only we found funny. Those memories are anchors, tethering me to the hope that our bond is not lost, that intimacy can return, that love can endure even when it is tested in ways I never imagined. I do not know when, or if, things will change. I do not know if she will notice the pain her absence causes, if she will understand the quiet despair I carry, or if she will ever return to me in a way that bridges the growing chasm. All I know is that I am here, waiting, hoping, loving, and enduring. I am here, holding on to the belief that connection, understanding, and intimacy can survive even when life seems determined to pull us apart. And I am here still, because love, stubborn, relentless, and unyielding, is worth enduring the pain, the absence, and the loneliness even if it takes every ounce of my being.